Let's bring in ESPN investigative reporter TJ Quinn now. TJ, plenty of big names involving Biogenesis in the last go-round, like A-Rod and Ryan Braun. Are we expecting more big-name players connected to this latest scandal?
Well, David, I don't know if they're going to be big names, but we do know there are going to be names. I've spoke to people with both the U.S. Attorney's Office and the DEA, and they said that the names of several major leaguers who had not been previously identified as Biogenesis clients, their names came up during the investigation. They said that they have no plans to try to seal that information. It's going to be presented along with any other evidence in the case as it moves forward, and that they absolutely expect that Major League Baseball wants to get their hands on it, and that it seems likely that those players, once identified, will face suspensions.
You said the information will be presented at some point. Do we have any sort of a timeline when that might happen?
We really don't. A number of procedural things that have to happen, but one thing they kept making clear all afternoon was that this case, which is known by the code name of Operation Strikeout, is going to continue. That if they can find that it leads to other dealers who are connected to other players, they'll release that information as well. But the point that the government made was they weren't after the players. They're after the dealers and the distribution ring. And if players got caught up in that, so be it. That's not their concern, but it's certainly what Major League Baseball is worried about.
I guess a lot of people assume that the Biogenesis scandal had been thoroughly and completely investigated. They had the names, baseball did, and that was that. Why didn't baseball come up with the names that we don't know yet of these other people that were involved with Tony Bosch?
Well, baseball was relying entirely on Tony Bosch and the information that he could provide them. They had some other information that they got from other sources. It was well documented that baseball paid some former Bosch associates for documents, but it was up to Bosch to interpret them. And then really it was up to Bosch as to whether or not he was going to mention any names that weren't included in the documents that baseball had. What seems clear is that there were more names, and that had been out there. A number of sources had told us as well that there were other names out there. But we have law enforcement officials from the two different offices confirming that. Baseball's agreement with Bosch was that they would drop their lawsuit against him, which they only brought to pressure him into cooperating, and that they'd also try to help him out with if he ever faced criminal prosecution, they'd put in a good word for him. Well, they never really did put in a good word, and it sounds like Bosch simply just didn't keep up his end of the bargain and disclose every bit of information he had.
TJ, have we heard the last of Tony Bosch? Is this the final chapter for him as it pertains to PEDs in baseball?
Well, we'll have to see whether or not he offers more information as this goes forward. We're going to see evidence connected to him that should name other players. But at the end of the day, he has pleaded guilty to conspiracy to distribute anabolic steroids. He faces a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison, which is extremely unlikely. But he is facing jail time, and it would be hard to imagine that he could continue supplying players anytime after this.
TJ Quinn, who has been reporting this story from the very beginning, filling in some of the blanks for us today on the news that Tony Bosch surrendered to federal authorities on a charge of distributing anabolic steroids.